Donald Trump wants to put forward a strong face in this ongoing clash with the Democrats over the function of government, the ongoing shutdown. But behind the scenes, sources are implying that he is actually starting to understand, at least on some level, that he's not exactly winning this thing. So here's a quote from a New York Times piece. Quote, "We are getting crushed," Mr. Trump told his acting chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, after watching some recent coverage of the shutdown. According to one person familiar with the conversation, quote, "Why can't we get a deal?" And so that's all true, but aides say that the president believes he's still playing a strong hand and that any moments of frustration have been fleeting. I would probably generalize that to any thoughts or emotions he possesses are fleeting because his brain is just holding a tempest and it moves all over. And honestly, so they make reference there to him responding to coverage of the situation. There are a number of different sources that have been saying that he is glued to the TV. In general, he's been that way for years, but specifically about this. And depending on the tenor of whatever conversation he's watching, that determines how he thinks he's doing. So I hope he's watching this one. You suck. Your government shutdown sucks, buddy. Hopefully that helps.
I'm gonna go ahead and guess that he does not watch this show. That would require him to understand how to.
We should have gotten him a membership.
That would be funny.
Let's do that next time.
And a little terrifying given how unhinged he is once he sees something he doesn't like. But regardless, I would love for him to watch the show.
Let him shut us down. We have backup careers in our minds.
A recent poll that came out indicated that 57% of American voters do not support him, would not support him if the election happened today. I apologize, I forget exactly which organization did that poll, but that's telling because it's one of many stories that have come out as of late showing that his popularity is sinking as this government shutdown goes on. And look, people really take for granted how important these federal programs and these federal employees are to our day-to-day lives. So for instance, the WIC program that offers food and help to low-income women who are either pregnant or who have very young kids, that's suffering right now. And so there are churches luckily getting involved to try to help as this shutdown continues, but they can only help so much.
Yeah.
And so I wanna give a shout out to all those churches and all those people out there who are helping these government workers, but we should have a federal government that looks out for us, that takes a leadership role in doing something about what's going on. This is out of control.
Yeah, and like the story we talked about yesterday about the woman who had to ration her insulin, and after that story got out, people started sending her insulin, which again, not cheap. I mean, that's the whole point of the story, of course. So look, you brought up the polls. I want to turn now to some of that polling data.
Okay,
I try not to talk about polls as much as I naturally would like to. I like numbers. And I especially try not to do it when she's here because
you love polls.
I do, but I try not to burden you with them. However, in this case, Donald Trump does care about these numbers. And it's not like on a day-to-day basis, he's thinking, should I continue the shutdown? Well, it's really hurting people, but I think it's in the nation's best interest security-wise if I continue it. No, he's like, will this help me get elected or will this not help me get elected?
Exactly, yes.
So the numbers do potentially matter. So I'm gonna read some of these numbers. They're generally bad. There is one surprising good result for the president, which I will acknowledge as well. So overall, among Republicans, Trump has lost 7 points since December when the government shutdown began, dropping from 90% to 83%. So still obviously very supported, but losing 7 points in 1 month, that is not easy.
It's not easy, but let's just also acknowledge the fact that Republicans have lost their minds. Like the fact that he has such a high approval rating among Republicans.
Yep.
I mean, because I even after all this, I really wanted to believe that there are people in the Republican Party who I might disagree with when it comes to policy, but they're not crazy, right? They're not completely crazy. Like they see what's happening and they understand that he's a terrible president. But no, I was wrong. They're crazy.
Yeah, did you see the reaction of the Gillette thing?
Well, yes.
There's some crazy people out there.
I did see the reaction.
Anyway, so let's break it down even more because that was Republicans. So since December, he's lost 7 points with white evangelical Christians, 7 points with white male non-college graduates, and his support among white voters overall has dipped 10 points from 50% to just 40%. I mean, those are his three cores, and obviously there's gigantic overlap between those groups in general. especially white people and white males. There's a lot of overlap. But 10 points among white voters is significant. We also have, let's see, in terms of going towards the next election, because that's really what I think he cares about, not the approval ratings. I mean, he tweeted today that they're all rigged. I don't know how exactly they'd be rigged or why, what that would prove. But in terms of their plan to vote, so 57% of Americans said they definitely plan to vote against Trump, including 60% of voters in the Midwest. So considering that, the next candidate probably shouldn't even visit there. It's a waste of time. Even among self-identified Trump supporters, 7% said they'd vote against him, and another 17% are unsure. So at a similar point in Barack Obama's presidency, 44% of Americans said they would definitely vote against his re-election. So 44 for Obama, 57 for Trump. I mean, that seems pretty big. But you want to hear the good news for the president?
Not really.
I mean, I don't know why you ever would, but I want to acknowledge
it. We should be fair. Yes.
Exactly, because we say the numbers. So I think since December, I think it's a 1 month thing, he's gained, I think, 15 points with Hispanic Americans. He's up to 50% approval in this one poll, to be fair, but that's what all of these are. One poll, 50% approval.
That poll's rigged. I'm just kidding. I'm just going to do what he does. Every time I see something that's inconvenient for me, I'm going to go ahead and say that it's rigged.
Life is really easy psychologically to do that.
That is fascinating. It really is. It might be because he's actually increased the number of foreign workers coming into the country to work at Mar-a-Lago. And so maybe that's why his approval rating, and that's a story that we'll do later in the show. But I don't really know the reasoning behind that. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and I sort of implied this earlier, but I hate that we even have to think about this or that this would even matter. I mean, it should be like, it's been how many weeks now that we've been trying to focus on the day-to-day life stories of the people who are either off work or are working and not being paid. We want people to understand the human toll of this. But like, as much as you care about that, he doesn't care about that. And so it comes down to these considerations, these BS considerations.
Right, and to be fair, those BS considerations happen to be not just the only thing that Trump cares about, but the only thing that every politician involved in this seems to care about. Because this is all about political strategy. There was a lawmaker in Texas who was interviewed on The Daily today. It's the New York Times podcast, and I love that podcast. They do a really good job going in depth with some of these stories. And I apologize for forgetting this lawmaker's name, but he was talking about how the majority of his constituents, he's in a border town, do not want this wall because they understand that the wall is not gonna solve the issue of drug trafficking. And so he talks about how the majority of the illegal narcotics go through legal ports of entry, and then he offered real solutions for it. And the solutions that he offered had to do more with technology as opposed to a physical barrier. And I'm sharing this information with all of you guys because someone who actually cared about this issue and was worried about border security would be open-minded enough to listen to a lawmaker in the state of Texas. He's a Republican who agrees that there needs to be increased border security, but does not think the wall is gonna solve the problem. Trump doesn't care about that. Again, this is all about a symbol that's going to appease his base, and that's it, nothing more than that.
We're not going to talk about it for long, but I saw something this morning, I think on Media Matters, I just have to mention. So as all this is going on, Fox News is attempting to the extent that they can to persuade people and to move the needle on this. And their idea, and Trump has been encouraging this as well, is that there's another caravan. So let's scare people. And so to prove that, they sent one of their reporters, and they were talking to the reporter live in the field. They sent him to, I believe it was Guatemala. And the guy was on the side of a highway talking to Fox News, and whenever someone would walk by, he would yell at them. They didn't talk to him, they just kept walking, and he would say, well, it's two members of the caravan, they don't appear to have any money. It was just two people on the highway. There was no caravan, it was cars going by, and then two guys were talking and happy. They just assumed that a random Guatemalan is part of the caravan, and that is their live coverage from the field to convince people that we need a border wall.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.